In this lesson, we're going to talk about the minor blues scale. I don't know if this is the correct way to think about this, but for me, I just like to keep things simple, and I don't need 15 things to think about while I'm playing. I just want to play. So I'm going to walk through this, and hopefully you can understand it. So let's look at this in the key of C. So if we go back to the number system, if you play the major scale, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So you can find the pentatonic by only playing notes 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 1. And then from there, you can find the major blues by adding a flat third to that pentatonic scale. So it's 1, 2, flat 3, 3, 5, 6, 1. So you have the major scale, major pentatonic, and the major blues. So as I walk through 12 keys and practice those scales, it's not too much to remember. Now, if we look at the minor scale using the parallel minor method, then you have to think about it this way. So you have the C major scale, and then to get the minor scale, you're flatting 3 notes. So it's 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and then you're 1. So major, minor. The minor scale has 3 flats. Now, if you want to get to the pentatonic, you play it 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. Where the major pentatonic is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1, minor pentatonic. So you have 2 flats in the minor pentatonic. And the other thing that's confusing about this is you would think that because the major pentatonic is the first 3 notes of the major scale, 1, 2, 3, you would think the minor pentatonic would be the first 3 notes of the minor scale, which would be 1, 2, flat 3. But it's not. It's 1, flat 3, 4. So that adds an extra level of confusion to it. And then when you go to the minor blues scale, you're adding a flat 5 to that minor pentatonic. So now it's 1, flat 3, 4, flat 5, 5, flat 7, and 1. So the major blues, and then the minor blues. So you have 6 different scales that you're thinking about. The major scale, the minor scale, major pentatonic, minor pentatonic, major blues, and minor blues. So just to play those 3 minor scales, you're adding 3 flats to the minor scale, 2 flats to the minor pentatonic, and then 2 flats to the minor blues. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 flats you're adding. Plus, you have an extra finger pattern when you do that blues minor, because instead of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 5 for the major, you're playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 5. So it's an extra finger pattern. So you have 7 flats plus a finger pattern. So that's 8 things you have to remember. And then if you multiply that by all 12 keys, you have 96 things you have to think about if you're thinking in terms of the parallel minor method. So that's why I always use the relative minor scales, because the only thing I have to remember is that I'm starting on the 6 instead of the 1. And it's the same process for the major scale, the pentatonic scale, and the blues scale. And so to find the 6, I just count down 3 half steps. So if I'm going to do a C major scale, that's my 1, and then I count down 3 half steps. So 1, 2, 3. So that's my A minor scale. It's the same notes and it's the same finger pattern. I'm just starting on my 3rd and ending on my 3rd. Same thing for the pentatonic. I move down 3 half steps, and there's my starting point for my relative minor. And it's same for the major blues. I work down 3 half steps, 1, 2, 3, and that's my A minor blues scale using the same finger pattern. And it's the same for all 12 keys. So whatever finger pattern I'm using for the major scale, I'm going to duplicate that in the relative minor scale. So let's go through these minor blues scales in all 12 keys, and I want to work through them in group order so you can get used to those finger patterns. So for the major blues scale, group 1 was in this order. It was C, F, G, and D flat. So then group 1 for the minor blues scale is going to be the relative minor of the major. So group 1 in minor will be A minor, D minor, E minor, and B flat minor. And remember, for the major, the finger pattern for group 1 is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 5. So for the minor, it'll be the same pattern. You're just starting on finger 3 instead of starting on finger 1. So let's go through group 1. We'll start in the key of C. So like I said before, with the pentatonic, when I'm doing the relative minor, I like to think in terms of my major, get my hand in there, and then I'll go back to the minor. So we'll start in C, and then I'll go to the minor, and I'll play the minor blues scale. And if you want to do 2 octaves, and then we'll go to F, and I find my relative minor. And then 2 octaves. And then I go to G. I'll move down here, so I find my relative minor. And then if I want to go 2 octaves, then I go to D flat. I find my relative minor, which is B flat. And then 2 octaves. So that's group 1. And then group 2 for the major scale goes in this order: A, D, E, B, and F sharp. So then for the minor, it'll go in that same order, just with the relative minor key. So it would be F sharp minor, B minor, D flat minor, A flat minor, and E flat minor. And then my finger pattern for the major scale was 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 5. So again, the minor is going to follow that same finger pattern. You're just starting on the 3 and ending on the 3. So let's start in A, and then I find my relative minor, which is F sharp. Then I go up 2 octaves. Then I go to D and find my relative minor, which is B. And then 2 octaves. And then we'll go to E and find my relative minor, which is C sharp. So I'll start here. And then 2 octaves. And then I go to B and find my relative minor, which is A flat. And then 2 octaves. Then I go to F sharp, find my relative minor, which is E flat. And then 2 octaves. So that's group 2. And then we move to group 3. So in the major scale, it was A flat, B flat, and E flat. And there wasn't really a finger position that works for all 3 of these. So the way I remember it is my finger 3 is always going to land on a B flat. So if that's the case, then my second finger will fall on A flat. And then for E flat, I start with my second finger. So those are just kind of things you have to remember as you go through this. So if I start in A flat, my relative minor is going to be F. So I'll start with my first finger. So it would be like this. And remember, this is one of those keys where you can either use your finger 5 to end it, or you can bring your thumb under to hit that last note. If you're starting out, I want you to get used to bringing your thumb up and down. And if you do 2 octaves, then you can finish on your pinky. And then we go to B flat, so we start in your third finger, and then you find your relative minor, which is G, so you'll start with your second finger. And then 2 octaves. Then you move to E flat, which you start on your second finger, which means your relative minor is C, and you start with your one finger. And that's another thing where when you get to the top, you can bring your thumb up. Or if you do 2 octaves, you can use your pinky to end it. And that is the minor blues scale. And in the next section, we're going to work through those speed drills so you can see where you're at and what you need to work on.